Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how to manage midlife chaos through TCM. So this is going to be a special one for all my perimenopausal women out there. And to help us out with this topic, we have the delightful Keri, who is an acupuncturist and a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine with 2 decades of clinical experience. Now, at the dawn of the wellness era, Keri forged a practice in some of the world's leading health retreats, integrating traditional healthcare and spa therapies. Now, a passionate writer, practitioner, and educator focusing on women's health and perimenopause. She offers courses for women and health practitioners to better understand perimenopause. She believes this generation of women will be the wildest and healthiest elders of the future. That is really exciting. Now, not only all of that, but Keri is very special to me because she has been my mentor. You guys, many of you know that I am studying a master's in traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture. And Keri has been my mentor, and I'm so, so grateful for her. She's full of wisdom. So I'm excited to have her here on the podcast to share how we can manage midlife chaos and perimenopause. So welcome to the
Oh
podcast.
my goodness, that's just so very, very generous. And it has been a pleasure to be your mentor. Yes, it has actually been a complete privilege. I think all the work that you do is incredible, and adding that master's icing on the cake is just such a brilliant thing to be doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, we've had lots of fun in your clinic. And if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, you can see Keri's beautiful clinic in the background at Chevron Island because she is recording from her clinic. It is actually a public holiday today, and we both forgot because when you're like an entrepreneur, you kind of just, I don't know, you just go off a different timetable. So my kids might bust through the doors at any minute, just
Yeah.
letting you all know.
I've just locked the door. It's fine. We're safe on this end at least.
Yeah. Before we get into this, Keri, I want to ask you some of my rapid inspiration questions just so we get to know you on a different level. And the first one is if your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. It would be like, I would love for it to be really elegant and inspiring. It would probably be like some kind of slapstick comedy, like Comedy of Errors theme song. What would it be? Something colorful, something that would go along with like, oh my goodness. I'm going to come back to the actual name of it, but it would be fun and loud and fast and chaotic. And as much as I would like it to be really elegant and calm and relaxing,
It's just not us.
just not the way it rolls.
No, I'm totally the same. I'd like to have like a really beautiful song, but oh God, mine would be I don't know. I think mine would have to be a mix between like this sort of like gangster hip hop music and then this really peace, love, and harmony because I like flow between the two. And being in that sort of perimenopausal age, I flow between the two more often than not now.
That's actually a really good visual, perhaps, that women can kind of just comfortably know that you're allowed to be the full spectrum of soundtracks and feelings and experiences. And you can go from disco diva to Enya to gangster rap pretty quickly.
Totally, because I feel like I'm all like peace, love, and harmony, and then all of a sudden I'm like a mother beeping gangster. So I feel you.
A lot of people could definitely relate to that.
And one more question that isn't quite TCM related, maybe it is, but it is what do you have anything that's unconventional on your bucket list?
Oh, I love what a great question. Unconventional. I don't have any like, I'm not someone who needs to climb any more mountains. I don't need to eat strange foods. I
Probably in heaps of strange foods being a TCM practitioner
We do
already.
very, very, we drink a lot of dirt, we
Mm.
drink a lot of dirt. Um, oh, look, I would like to live somewhere where I need to learn the language, even if it's just for 6 months, like maybe when I'm like 60 or something, go and learn a new language. But that's probably a normal thing to have on your bucket list, like to go and live in, I don't know, Provence or something.
It's still pretty cool though. I must admit, I really want to do that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Definitely on my bucket list.
Just, yeah, I don't know, probably grow some weird vegetables, like, I don't know.
Become the weird vegetable grower. Love it. All right, we'll put that on your bucket list. So, with 2 decades of experience in traditional Chinese medicine, that's a lot of experience in that. What are the most common challenges you see women facing during perimenopause and midlife to make their life chaotic?
Oh my goodness. Firstly, I think there will be undiagnosed, subclinical, not looked at, swept under the table health issues that rear their head, that either get worse and suddenly become clinical and they have to look at them and pay attention. So it's the stuff that you kind of thought you could get away with in your 30s. It
Mm.
just comes back in full cyclone. You thought that low pressure system had gone out to sea and was going to go far, far away. No, no, no. It turns around and turns into a category 5 cyclone. And the other thing would be, oh, an inability, like if you have struggled as a woman, as many, many, many of us and people listening will definitely relate. If you've had trouble prioritizing yourself in any fashion, whether it's due to business, work, parenthood, people pleasing, all
Mm.
of these things, it is going to bring you unglued. It is going to need to be looked at and for you to be able to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. It's like we're like this pressure system, and then all of a sudden we hit this perimenopausal age and it just goes explodes us open, and all this stuff we've been like burying down for years comes out, whether that's like health conditions or boundary issues or whatever it is. And the first point you made is so true, because I know like when I was in my 20s and even early 30s, I'd be like, I could just, have a really good couple of weeks of exercise and still pretty much eat not fantastic, but not bad. And, I would be able to lose that weight easily. Now, no way. The rules do not apply like that.
Yeah.
It
It,
just
it is a different set of rules. And I think if we can get our heads around that and not necessarily blame it or turn peri, because peri is a season, it's not
Mm.
an actual diagnosis or a sickness or an illness that you come down with or catch, right? It's like the midlife version of our period, that menstrual cycle. As we fluctuate through the month, we actually then fluctuate through our life. So if we understand the rules, if somebody somewhere ever taught us what those rules were,
Yeah.
we would in theory be able to navigate that relatively well.
Absolutely. It is just such a transition through the season. Like from an Ayurvedic perspective, we look at that transition from being more of a Pitta dosha energy. So it doesn't matter what your individual constitution is, but we're in that energy, in that midlife energy of where we're acquiring like our assets, we're working, we're like driven. And then there's that transition into more of that Vata phase of life.
Yeah.
But in our modern lifestyles, we don't give in to that transition and that phase, and that's what can cause an imbalance in our systems. So from a TCM perspective, how do you explain this season of perimenopause?
Yeah, so very, very similarly, just different languaging, but the same meaning is underneath it. So you've got that summer season of life where you might be having your children, your, doing all of the things, house, career, life, travel, like you say, acquiring things, building things. This correlates to that mid-cycle part of our cycle. We've got more energy, we've got more get up and go, there's life force that we've got to access, and it does relate to that fire element. So again, that pitta, it kind of matches, and then as we move into our 40s, it's going from the earth element into the metal. So, you know, a lot of the poetic texts will say when earth bears metal. So that metal, again, translates a little bit more to that vata. There's less give. There's less life force. It gets a bad rap in our culture because it's not the go, 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 do, 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 give, give, give. There's an element of slowing down, you know, a little bit. It's not a complete halt, but it is a season to reflect, to gain clarity, to gain point of view and perspective, to look back on our life thus far. What are we going to keep? What is working? What isn't working? And these things might sound a little bit more spiritual or mental, emotional, but practically speaking too, it's that autumn harvest season. So if we look practically around like what's working in our life, what do we want to celebrate? These are seasons where kids might be growing up. They might be finishing high school. They might be finishing primary school. You might have reached some kind of height within your work or career. You might have changed careers. There's those kinds of things going on in your life where it is time to celebrate the fruit that you've actually grown and created in all of its many variations in life, and just pause a little bit. And again, that does correlate to more mental, emotional practices possibly, but physically as well. It gives our body time to slow things down and get clarity on what's working and what's not. Like you're saying, when you're in your 30s, you can eat whatever you want. We've got that faster metabolic rate. Things are, so the earth element again relates to our gut function. It does start to slow down. Now, I use that in kind of air quotes. There has been scientific studies to say that it's not technically changing, but from a Chinese health perspective, and almost definitely from your point of view as well, the way we process foods from a TCM perspective and the energy that our gut function has access to is often suboptimal. And therefore, we start to show up with some sort of gut issues, weight gain, sensitivity to sugar and alcohol, and these sorts of things.
Absolutely. And like gut and hormones, they go hand in hand as well. And your hormones are fluctuating. The whole way that your gut processes the whole, like, you know, we have those estrobiomes in our gut as well, which are responsible for metabolizing estrogen and stuff like that. Things they work together and they do diminish. So yeah, that's interesting. And you mentioned like life force energy, and from like an Ayurvedic perspective, we talk about prana, but that's exactly the same as in TCM. You speak of chi, and so from in TCM, like the concept of chi, can you explain how does that get disrupted during midlife, and what can we do to replenish more of this life force, this chi energy?
So this piece of knowledge is really what sent me down the path of looking more at this season of life and really being able to focus and offer treatments and courses and all of this. So there are some very elegantly written ancient textbooks. They're like 2,000 years old or something. And the translated version, I reread a couple of years ago, and it's a text that any acupuncture student would have read back in the day when they first started.
I'm going,
I know for a fact you've read this and we've had conversations about it.
have I?
It literally talks about the ages, the cycles of 7 for us ladies, and that as we age and when we get to the age of 35, that kidney energy, that beautiful, delicious fuel tank that hopefully we got born with, a really great, rich, full kidney fuel tank, and we've taken care of ourselves throughout our life, hopefully, and we get to the age of 35, and that life force, that chi, that energy, that correlates to the spleen, which is our gut function. Let's just keep it nice and simple and not too weird. Starts to become less. So you don't fall off a cliff at 35. just all of my beautiful ladies out there, everyone being told that they're falling off some kind of life force cliff at 35. And because the body is really clever, it says, right, if we don't have as much of that energy to keep doing all of the things that we want, we don't want to tax that beautiful fuel tank that we got given at birth. We want to keep that until our old age so we can stay healthy as we age and we can have healthy bones and healthy brain and all of these things. So the body very cleverly starts to wind down very, very slowly that menstrual cycle, because it's a very energy dominant process. It uses up a lot of chi and blood for obviously the purpose of making babies. So at age 35, if we're going in those beautiful cycles of 7, that chi starts to wind down. So it doesn't mean that suddenly you fall off a cliff. It doesn't mean much at all, but it's helpful to understand that and to know that from our late 30s, it's really helpful to be taking extra care of ourselves, especially when it comes to our diet, because that is the first place that our body is going to make fuel from. Quite simply, we breathe in good air and energy, and we then break down our food to make really good, vital food sources. So obviously that we can then make really healthy chi and blood. And the body's very, very clever. If that's going to start winding down, it says, right, well, what's the most energy dominant process in our body? Let's start dialing that down. So over the course of the next 15 years or so, those first 5 or so years, we're not even really going to notice it necessarily. Things start to just dial down. Does that does that paint a picture?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I love so much about Eastern medicine, as it really has this beautiful holistic overview. So it looks at the life force energy of a being, it looks at the different systems and the channels and the energy and the physical aspects and all of that. So from a TCM perspective, how can TCM help women in perimenopause manage the chaos that they may be feeling in their life because of the hormonal shifts,
Yes.
the load that life and the
Yeah.
responsibility that life is that's put on your shoulders basically at that sort of midlife mark. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how does TCM play a role in that?
Look, what I see with my clients is that an understanding and an education of our bodies is kind of helpful in the first place, because if you can understand why the wheels have fallen off, then you can work out what to do to put them back on, or even if you want to put the wheels back on at all, right? And there's a lot that can be done through lifestyle, diet changes without it being hectic, without it being over the top, to understand how important sleep is, understanding how important protein and nutrient dense foods are, not fad diets or anything weird and wonderful, but just good old fashioned real food. How healthy it is to say no to things.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of women, and I know you've had these conversations as well, in those private conversations will admit to how angry, how frustrated, how tired they really, really are. And before you get to that point, to start saying no to things, as easy as it sounds for me to just say no to things, to really cultivate and learn how to put those boundaries in place is so important.
Agree, 100%. I totally agree, because that, it might not seem like that would have an actual physical chemical response on our body, but it so does. Our hormones aren't just estrogen and progesterone. There are stress hormones, there are sex hormones. Like the whole endocrine system relies on us being able to be, strong within ourselves, and that's managing our emotions and our responsibilities and being able to say no. And yes, we've definitely had conversations around this ourselves. Like, just because it's not doesn't make it easy all the time either. So
No, no.
100%.
And I know that this would be a big part of your work as well, but with treatment or coaching, it's about holding women's hands as they learn those very scary skills, if it's a brand new thing, to be able to say no, to actually even, just put the phone down an hour earlier
Mm,
dim the lights, get into bed half an hour earlier. These things sound so simple and so tiny, but they have broad long-term effects.
mm,
When I first started working in health retreats, and I was treating very, very chronically stressed and burnt out women prior to my understanding of this whole peri season when I was in my early 30s. Um, I had all these grandiose notions and ideas because I love, the storytelling element of Chinese medicine and the philosophy and the ancient language of it is just so beautiful and so poetic. And I've got all these, delightful notions of what I'd be teaching. And then in the practicality of it, I was really, making sure that people had food in the fridge,
mm,
making people knew how to just switch off and go to bed earlier. Like we do need to start with those basics, because sometimes it can feel overwhelming to think you've got to, resort the entire house, everybody in it, and all of your jobs and work, and you have to, I don't know, quit your job and go and live on a mountain somewhere. It does need to start simply with small tasks that you can then build on.
And I think that perimenopause transitional phase, and as I mentioned from that Vedic perspective, that transition in like what doshas sort of are more dominant, it's also from that Vedic perspective is where you transition into what we call like this wise womanhood.
Yes.
And in our culture, it's sort of like almost like what's the word where you feel, oh, I don't want to like admit that I'm in perimenopause, then I'll be going into menopause. It's like this,
Yeah,
it's
there's shame. There has
yeah,
been.
shame and stigma and stuff about it. But like actually it's like this beautiful transition of like you know more about your body. You get more like there's more of an intuitive sense and understanding. And if you don't, it's like that opportunity to really dial in and to understand it. So then you are, becoming one of the elder women, like you mentioned in like the
Yes.
video, the wildest,
And
healthiest elders.
that is my real dream. Like it is my passion for myself. I don't know. I mean, I'm 49 and I don't know that I've necessarily seen lots of elder women who have thrived or been nourished and nurtured. I think my mum's um cohort, I don't remember what happened when she was going through menopause. I think there was a huge amount of stigma, and that somehow you just had to either stay young or then hide yourself because you were too old. And I would love for our generation as we age to really celebrate that. And sure, there's some hot flushes that we're going to need to deal with potentially, right? But I think we're sold the negative symptomology over and above the real opportunity to recreate our lives. We've got like, I don't know, a very large quarter of our lives at least left. There is a whole nother piece of our lives that we get to build, nourish, work, create, take care of, grandchildren, grandnieces, create a new business, write another book. Like, there's a big piece of our life left that this season of Peri, with its chaos, we get to sift through that and decide what we want to have in our elder years. So that chaos does have purpose. It's not just to bash us over the head with hot flushes and brain fog. That chaos or that sense of questioning, a lot of women will be like, I don't know if I want to stay in this job anymore. I don't know if I want to stay here anymore. I don't know what I want to, and that can feel really quite terrifying. Certainly, absolutely. But from that chaos, there is a purpose and a point to it, I feel anyway. And that with care and TLC and support, we can find that clarity to create the next season of our lives.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned earlier, perimenopause and menopause is not a disease. It is a natural transition in life. And what I have seen, especially in your clinic where you treat a lot of perimenopausal women, they come in with the symptoms. Like some women, if there's a lot of underlying stress going on or hormonal imbalances, they do have the symptoms of hot flushes, maybe like the irregular periods, which is to be somewhat expected, but that
Yeah.
can come with a lot of symptoms within itself. So I guess the question on everyone's mind is, how does acupuncture actually help this? Like, how does it help
Yeah.
these perimenopausal women? Because they get fantastic results, and it's really hard to explain
It
how it
is.
works and why it works.
Yeah, and it is a treatment that and a well, where do I start? So
Big
it
question.
yeah, no, well, acupuncture works with anything, including hot flushes, brain fog, issues with periods, because it's going to treat each person as they show up, right? So it's going to look at your whole health history. It's not just one particular pill or one set of points that's, dished out to every single woman. It's looking at your own personal, kind of like you would look at people's doshas to try to get, what type of treatment's actually going to work for the person in front of you. Acupuncture, and from a TCM perspective, is supporting the liver, which through this transition is working incredibly hard to process stress chemistry, to make sure everything is in the right levels. From a TCM perspective, it's helping our sleep, it's helping our, ability to navigate change and deal with stress. So from our perspective, we're helping to support that organ do all of the beautiful things that it needs to be doing. Even from a Western scientific perspective, the Australian Menopause Association has on their website that acupuncture is a really beautiful treatment to have in partnership with things like HRT or other treatments. So it's supporting your nervous system. Again, to use that language from a more Western perspective, it's helping to dial down the stress. Yeah, to really simplify it. If we can come out of that stress response, which we so often are from poor diet, excess caffeine, excess alcohol, big life situations, our sex chemistry, as you were just saying, doesn't have a chance to regulate properly.
Beautiful. And for the ladies out there who are interested in TCM acupuncture, or who have had it, they may have heard the terminology of like the Zhang Fu organ. So the different meridians are named after like an organ
Yes.
system within our body. But
Yep.
often if you've got no knowledge of that and you first
Yep.
hear it, and you say to someone, oh, your livers need support, they automatically think they've got like some liver condition, or your spleen, and they're like, what, my spleen? Like, so
Yep.
can you just briefly go through the organ systems that
Mm.
relate to the meridians and explain what's that got to do with women's health?
Oh my goodness. So basically the first year of the acupuncture degree, no problem. 10 words or less.
Yeah, just sorry. Again, I'm
Oh,
preparing for my final exam.
exactly. Okay, ready, set.
Yeah.
Look, I will always say to clients, and you would have heard it, oh, okay, I'm feeling your liver pulse and it's a bit this or it's a bit that. And I always preface that then by saying, it doesn't mean that the actual organ itself is about to pack it in. Please don't stress. If you had blood tests or scans, everything's fine. But the beauty of TCM is that we can feel and perceive and see things in that subclinical place. Western science is wonderful to ascertain if things are in a really kind of higher risk illness category, right? We ideally would get there way before that named disorder has had time to really take effect and take place. So the 12, and there's organs that don't even exist. So we will probably just skip them, right, for another podcast. But there are 12 channel pathways. People listening at this point are like, oh my God, what planet are we on? There are 12 channel pathways, which are, if you've seen those pictures in clinics with the people standing there with the lines and the dots all over them, those are the channel pathways that we're talking about. And each of those correlates with an internal organ. And those internal organs, from a TCM perspective, have all these extra glorious jobs to do over and above the stuff that we understand from Western science. So as an acupuncturist, We obviously study all of that Western science as well, and then we overlay all of that beautiful TCM theory and philosophy over the top. So we have an understanding of both organ functions and what should be happening. And so from a women's health perspective, your liver is in charge of making sure that your menstrual cycle is even and turning up on time, and that it's not painful and it's not too heavy, and that it's, you aren't feeling cranky and irritable that week before. The spleen, weirdly enough, is about helping you make the best possible blood from the food that you eat. So all of that beautiful high-end food that we're all going to be eating after listening to this podcast is going to help you make the most amazing fuel tank for your body, and therefore for your cycle. Your kidneys. So from a Western perspective, it might make sense to think about that fight or flight adrenal energy that a lot of us are running on. In an ideal world, the kidney energy from a TCM perspective is actually keeping us calm, grounded, nourished, and being able to adapt to stress, but then come back down out of that. So that is the key piece. We would really help to support that kidney energy to learn to come back out of action stations, do, and then be able to come back and get, for example, really beautiful night's sleep, because you're no longer in your head thinking about the to-do list. You've actually done that, and now you're coming back down to rest and digest. So those three organs, spleen, liver, and kidney, are the kind of key ones that I think most people, if you've had acupuncture, you would have heard your therapist saying something about either of those three organs.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's so awesome, like hearing it from the TCM perspective, how these organs are not just like an organ that does a physical thing, but is
Yeah.
also responsible for this energetic component of who we are and the emotional
Yeah.
aspect and all of that. So I love that. And I think the biggest takeaway I got through studying TCM was that to not think of it as like the meridians as an organ, but
Mm.
as a system. It's almost like the name, it being named after an organ can confuse people because yeah,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
runs through that organ, the meridian
Yeah.
system. But
Yeah.
that yeah,
And
it's
it is about how everything in your body works
mm,
together. So I think, which is a really, really helpful way if women, especially in their 40s, there's been lots of opportunities for different health issues to come in, and they might have seen an ear, nose, throat specialist for that, and they've seen a joint specialist for something else, and now they're seeing a gynae for what's going on with their cycle. And those things can often be very helpful and are necessary. And you come onto the treatment table to have an acupuncture treatment, and we pull all of that together, and we're treating all of it at the same time because we're treating you.
yeah, I love that so much. You have, yeah, shared so much with us. Everyone listening probably like
I
my
feel like
mind.
it's so fast. How much can I fit into 40 minutes?
No, I love it. But before we go, do you have any myths that you want to debunk about perimenopause, especially drawing on your TCM wisdom and knowledge?
Oh, you aren't going crazy. It's not in your head. Continue to advocate for yourself. It is tiring, and I'm sorry that you have to advocate for yourself, but continue to advocate for the best possible outcomes. And if you're not happy, keep going, or just call either of us, really, at the end of the day. There is light at the end of the tunnel. You can, like, I just really want women to have, I don't, things in life are hard. I don't want to sugarcoat it or gaslight women's experiences. There can be a lot of really challenging things in this season. There is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is help at hand. Yeah, don't just bury yourself and think, oh, well, they'll, create a pill at some point and I'll take it then. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. And if you are just feeling like in amongst all of the chaos, go see Keri, Dr. Keri, for an acu-nap because she's really good at being able to put you into a nice little sleepy space on her table. Keri, where can our listeners find you for an acu-nap?
They
And
can, sorry,
yeah,
go on.
where can they find you for an acu-nap? And then for those who don't live here on the Gold Coast, where can they connect with you
Yeah.
online?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I am at Chevron Island Health Studio. I co-own this beautiful little studio on Chevron Island on the Gold Coast. It is an actual island in the middle of Surf's Paradise. And you can find me online at kerikreiger.com. I spend pretty much my whole life, however, on Instagram. It is just my name as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And also you've got your perimenopause courses as well.
Yes, if you're a health practitioner and you happen to be listening to this as well, and you're thinking, how can I support my clients better? It is a course for all health practices, not only accus, but if you're a naturopath or a dietitian or something else as well.
Amazing. Yeah, I have a lot of health practices listen to this podcast. So yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much once again. And also I want to say, while I have this platform, a big heartfelt of gratitude of thanking you for also mentoring me through my master's degree, which, oh my God, will probably be like only a couple of weeks away from finishing once this podcast is out.
I am very much looking forward to celebrating your completion of this. You've done
Woohoo!
incredibly well.
4 long years. Oh God. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening. Please, if you enjoyed this or if you have any questions, reach out to Keri on Instagram or myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.